Hi, I'm Richard Humphreyville. Welcome to the Cabinet Maker. I've done 681 of these shows on local access shows over the last 17 years or so. We're going to try YouTube. I think it's about time that I go to a broader audience. The show's not going to be fancy, but I have 40 years worth of experience, and I'm going to have a 28-minute show, so one, I can put it on YouTube, and I can also put it on the local access station. I have all this information, and before I die, I want to make sure I can pass some of it on. What I want to go over today is we're going to do a potpourri of things. We're going to have sharpening, which is fairly basic. We're going to have, show you the ins and outs of it. I'm going to show you how to sharpen a scraper. Then I'm going to do the joint of the week. And we won't necessarily get through everything, but as we progress and you follow these shows, we'll gradually get through them one thing at a time. As you know, most people have the attention of a gnat. So I like to do a Sesame Street format. I might have 4 or 5 things going on at the same time. The first thing you want to do is when you're sharpening, I use the Waterstone system, and the reason I do as opposed to an oil system is because oil is carcinogenic. It gets in your hands, it gets on the wood, and I find using water, it's quicker, sharper, and faster. So we have here, I have a plane I've pulled out of my drawer. It just came from the manufacturer, and this is a Western chisel, where they've been, this is one piece of steel. This is a Japanese Eastern chisel where you have a soft steel melded to a hard steel. This is 60 Rockwell, 62 Rockwell, 60 Rockwell on the hardness scale, and this is 66. This one you bevel, this one you don't. So how do you go about sharpening these things? With a Waterstone system, you want to, like any stone system, you want to start off rough, like with a 320, a 220, and then you work up by going, let's say, 2,500, 4,000. Then you go to, from 4,000, you go to 6,000, you go to 8,000, and you can go even further than that, and you can use a strop. One of the things that you always have to worry about with the stone is the flatness of the stone, and 2, the grit that gets in the stone. For example, look at the difference between these two. I've taken this one over my diamond stone to flatten it and to get the iron out of it. And even if you're using water, the steel tends to get, this is a synthetic stone, the steel tends to get embedded in here, and then what happens is you lose your contact with the surface of the stone. And in turn, you're just going to be going back and forth forever and ever and ever, and you're not going to get it sharp. So the first thing you want to do is I have this is about 1 foot long. This is a 220 diamond stone, and it's fairly aggressive. And I take this stone right here, and I take it over the diamond stone, and you'll see that you have to purge this to keep it. So keep it clean, keep the diamond clean, so that you can you get a nice cut. Here you can hear it, see? And then you go on this side. Let me see how this looks. Okay, so we're just about there. Doesn't take very long. You don't want to spend a lot of time, or once you get it flat, don't keep going, because you have to do this periodically. If you want to increase the longevity, of your tools, you're going to have to do that. So what I'm going to do now, I've gone to the diamond stone, and you can take your diamond stone starting off, and you want to, on this, which is a 220 diamond, you do not want to take it over the bevel here. This is hollow ground, okay? This is hollow ground. That means, when I mean hollow ground, let me see if I can get one of these markers to work here. You have the chisel like so. A hollow grind is when it curves like this, okay? Now the Japanese, they don't have a hollow grind, nor are you supposed to put one on. So you sharpen the whole edge, the whole face of the chisel. And this one, the stone hits here, and this stone hits here. And it's much more effective that way. This has to be sharpened more frequently. This doesn't. So the time you spend here is made up in the long run because this will stay sharper longer. First thing you want to do is you want to wet down the stone because the water is a vehicle and that purges the steel that comes off the plane. It purges it, and in turn you're not rolling over the steel. It's like a ball bearing. So I like to put, see, I'm like this. You want to get it as straight as possible. A little bevel like this is fine. You do not want to go like this. It's like glass. You ever scored glass? Well, it's the same thing. If you're going like this, it's going to make this edge very brittle. So you have to more or less go as close to straight up as you can, straight ahead as possible. Here, see what's happening here? You can see it's cleaning up fairly well. So you can see the striations right here. Now, after you've done that, you do not want to, like I said, you do not want to, I'm going to purge this, you do not want to use this diamond stone for, got to keep your bench as dry as possible. That's always a hassle. And you don't want to use the diamond stone on the front, on the bevel. Next step you want to do is to get a fairly aggressive stone. Now these combination stones are pretty cool. This is 1,000, 6,000. This one is 8,000. I believe this is the 8,000. No, this is the 4,000. This is I believe this is 800, 4,000, and then this one is 8,000, 12,000. So let's go ahead and start off with the 8,000, 800 rather. So what I'm going to do is you get it like this, and as you start sharpening this, you're going to find the surface on the back of this is going to get gray. One thing you have to remember, the reason why we're flattening these things is so that you get a nice, sharp, crisp edge. Now you're going to take this and you're going to see the water. See the water pool up right there? See it pool up? See how I'm doing it? You see it pool up. Then you hold it there. You lock your wrist and you go back and forth. Now it's important that you understand what you're doing here. When you're pulling it away, you're drawing out the steel. Some people go forward too aggressively. Come back, go forward. Come back, go forward. Then you come back over here, and what that's doing is you're gradually pulling the burr out. Okay? You can see the steel? See the steel there? You can see the gray matter? That's steel. That isn't your brain. It's just gray steel. Okay, let's see how we're doing here. Okay, see it's gotten a little grayer, and see the striations are finer. Before you had really, really distinct striations from the 220 diamond stone. But this being an 800, it's going to get a little more refined. Now I'm going to soak this in here, and we're going to jump up to a 4,000. Is this the 4,000? Yes, this is a 4,000. That's a pretty big jump. You don't have to do that. You can go to like a 2,500, but I find I can get away with that. I have a few stones that are around 2,500. You can get synthetic stones that are 25, 3,000. You can get, if you have the money, go out and buy the Japanese, the natural stones. They're really very, very nice, and they'll do an excellent job of sharpening. But these are affordable. The Japanese stones get, $100 or so a stone. So I'm going to go making sure this is 4,000. This is 4,000. See, it's marked right there. You generally can see these things. And see, it's quiet. It's real quiet. But you can tell it's working because you see the steel. See, and you can see if you look. Let me get the rag here. You can see how it's starting to polish up right there? Now what you want, you're using this for purchase. So, it's nice and flat. But what you're really looking for, you want the polish to be up here. Once you have this area right up by the edge polished, and you can almost see your face, then you can move on. Keep purging that stone. And I'm going to take this, once again, get the puddle. There we go. Lock your hand in place. Now, if you have a problem doing this, I used to be totally a purist, but being using these stones rather, getting a little tongue-tied here, using these stones tends to be a laborious process, and you can go to a electric system where you have a wheel turning and stuff, but you got to be very careful with those, that you don't blue the stone, because things happen very quickly there. If you're having trouble with keeping this flat, you can always do this. You can put it in here, lay it down until you get the right angle, okay, until you get the right angle, and then you can lock it in place. Veritas makes these things, and see, you can go like that, and it goes back and forth. But I don't like using it. I just find it does a good job, but it's a little on the cheating side as far as I'm concerned. I'm old guard. I like it to do it the old way, thinking that sooner or later we're going to run out of power and we're not going to have all the fancy little gimmicky tools, and we're going to have to know how to do it by hand. So there we go. I'm going to get this. I'm pulling out the steel again. Remember? Pulling out the steel. Making a point. Okay? Let me get on the blackboard for a second. I was talking about the hollow grind here. Now, we're flattening this area right here, okay? And in a microscope, when you start off with a new chisel that's come from the factory where they brag about it being down to 5/1000ths of an inch, well, that's a good start, but it's not very good. It's gonna look like that on a microscope, okay? After you flatten it, it's gonna look like this, just a little ripple like that. And that's what you want, because if you want to flatten these hills and get the valleys, get it all straightened out, because otherwise it's going to be sloppy, it's not going to cut properly. And they bring these, you get these things and people from the store, and you think, well, these things are ready to go. They're not ready to go. Not if you really want to have something that cuts nice and evenly and doesn't leave striation marks and stuff like that. So what you're doing is you're bringing out the steel this way and this way. And then when you're doing it this way, it tends to break off the very fine steel, and it gradually starts flattening until you get to that. So we're in the stages of going there. Okay, I'm going to just put this in the pond for a minute. Just get some of the stuff over here. So you can see. So you can see how the steel gets embedded in here. See? Remember that? See how it starts getting embedded? And you can get away with that for a while, but you can't do it forever. Sooner or later, you're going to have to sharpen it. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to get this. I'm drawing it out. So we have, okay, there we go. I just about have it. There we just about have it. So I'm getting it so that one of the important things, by the way, when you're sharpening your stones, have a sharpening area. See, you notice I have a stone pond right here, and they have the little devices that hold the stones in place. I don't really use those, but you make yourself, get a piece of plywood, put a little fence around it like this, and it holds the water. And you want to try to keep if you can. I'm doing this as a show, but for a TV show, for a YouTube. But normally I have an area away from my benches where I really don't. I have a platform over there, an old kitchen cabinet that has Formica on it, and I put this on there, so I don't care if it gets wet. But if your tool bench gets wet, you got a different situation. So I have this just about where I want. We're at 4,000 now, and this is probably the most important stone, because these next ones, the 6,000 and the 8,000, they're more polishing stones. This one is the aggressive stone, and at the same time, it's almost a smoothing stone. See, it's very fine, but this will do the majority of the real fine cutting, honing down of the steel. Okay, there we go. There, so I'm going to get this, clean this off, get this right here. Okay, here we go. Just going to try to clean that off a little. Try to get that clean. Let's put that in here. Now we're going to go to the 6,000, and believe it or not, I've already taken this down. It's just a, I don't know, discoloration over the years. But you can look at any stone, you can look and you can see very closely if there's steel embedded in it. So I'm doing the same thing, trying to keep the chisel flat. That is probably the hardest thing to do, is to keep that bevel as flat as you can, because what will happen eventually, if you don't keep it flat, it's going to round over, and then you're going to have to grind it on a hollow grind it on a silicate wheel, and the silicate will give you that hollow grind, but you got to go through the process of doing it over and over again, and eventually you're just going to wear the, you have so much space here, and you'll notice on the Japanese, so you don't have as much space because you don't hollow grind those. See, and with these, the Western tools, which, by the way, they used to do it this way. They used to meld a hard steel on the bottom and a soft steel on top. But as we got into mass production, they got away from that. And I like the Japanese chisels actually more, even though they're a little difficult to sharpen at times. Okay, so we're going to get this nice and pulling the steel where it's 6,000. Okay, so you can see there's still a hollow grind there. See how it's starting to, we're honing it down. And on the back side, see you're getting shinier and shinier. You're going to get to the point where it's a mirror. And that's what you want. You want to be able to look at your face. You want to be able to look at your face and see, if you can see your face in there, you got a nice mirror effect. So once again, going to clean this off, put it back in the pond, and finally we have the 8,000. And this is the one that's really going to give you your edge. There's some other techniques. I have a strop that I'm going to have to go over and get. See, this is cutting pretty aggressively, even though it's an 8,000 stone. See, we're almost there. Get that little puddle there. Okay, so we have it the way I want it. Now, I'm going to go over here, and if you see, let me show you. Just shine it over here. Get the camera and just shine it over briefly. See, this is a Formica area right here. See, I don't care. Here are the devices which hold your stone that go in the pond. I don't really use those. See, I have real aggressive stones. You also can use a piece of sandpaper, very fine sandpaper, put it on a very thick piece of glass, tape it down, and you can sharpen your plane that way if you don't have a lot of money. Just go to your glass store, say I want, 1/2-inch glass, maybe 1.5 feet by about 1 foot, and you can put that on your bench. You can even put it on a piece of wood and have it captured by putting edges all the way around it. That works too. That's inexpensive. Now, what I have here is a leather strop. Okay, you have a leather strop here that takes off the burr. And then I have this stuff, which is called Yellowstone. I believe it's called Yellowstone. You can see I don't have much of it left. But this is like, I would say it's like a 9,000. A 9,000, it's like a Naguro stone. You have this stone too. This is a 9,000. You make a slurry on your 8,000. And this will make a slurry with this. It's a little bit of a pain in the neck. And I prefer the Yellowstone when you put it on your strop. So you go over here. Let's go over back where we were. And I have one thing you should do on a strop is, so you can see just like flattening the stones, you have the steel that's built up. It's built up on the strop, and you want to make sure you can get as much of that off as possible. And I take my card file, my cabinet scraper, which we're going to show you how to sharpen in a minute. Okay, now we've gotten that. Take this, and very carefully. Now, you do not want to lift that, just the way you don't want to lift it here. You want to take it over here like this, and keep your fingers away from this. These things don't know the difference between wood and flesh. And if you want, take some of this Yellowstone and put it down like that, and then very carefully try not to round over the edge. And if this thing's sharp, it's getting sharp, you'll be able to cut hair. See, it's starting to cut hair. And ultimately what you want, I do not do as I say, don't do as I do. I use this all the time. I'm on blood thinners, which isn't the smartest thing, not on Coumadin. But best thing is get a piece of end grain on a piece of maple and put it up like that. And if it really shaves easily, then you have a very sharp chisel. So anyways, that's basically it. You can do that with your planing irons. You can do that with any number of things, whether it be planes, whether it be, you can even use it on a scraper if you want, and I'll show you that in a second. But I keep my stones, synthetic stones, in water, but if you have a cold shop, which tends to be here, it's always a good idea to take them out, because I've had the problem of the stones freezing, particularly the natural stones, and them splitting apart. Because I came into the shop on Monday, and it was like in the 20s. You don't want your stones in 29 degrees. They'll start freezing up, and then you got a problem. Okay, so you want to dry off your stones, make sure everything's clean, and you put it away, make sure everything's put away, and you just don't want to, some people just leave. One of my rules of the shop is when you're finished with something, you clean it up, you put it away so it doesn't get in the way of everything else. A lot of my students, you go into their shops and like somebody threw a grenade in there. Their tools all around. You don't want to do that. Be neat, be orderly, be systematic. Now we have, the next thing is sharpening a scraper. This is a cabinet scraper, all right? And this you live with. I live with a 6-inch ruler. I always like to carry a pen because they mark pretty well. I use these mechanical drawing pencils. And you get a 4H lead, a very hard lead. And then finally, I have, wherever the heck I put it, I have my marking knife. I was using it earlier. But I carry those things here, and I carry this. So how do you sharpen one of these things? First of all, you got to know the principle behind a scraper. Looking at it from the side, you have this, like that. You're looking at it from the side. This is the face. This is the edge right here. And this right here is called the arris, okay? This is called the arris. And that's what we're trying to sharpen. So the first thing you want to do is you want to take a file over the top, and then you want to draw the steel out, and then you want to bend over a hook. So the first step is to file it, make it sharp. The next thing is to take a burnishing rod over, and it'll start looking like this. And then you want to take the burnishing rod and you want to bend over the hook. All right? And a lot of people file it and then they take it over a stone. But I find that if you continue to hone the scraper, and these things tend to get dull reasonably quickly, a lot faster than a chisel or a plane iron, that the more you hone it, the finer, the fewer file marks are on it. So I'm going to take it, let me see, let's go over here now. I'm going to take this and let me see, which vise are we going to use here? We're going to take this one right here and I'm going to lock it in, and I get a single cut bastard file, okay? Single cut, they go like this. And you take it over the, let's put this a little lower in so it doesn't chatter as much. Put a little lower in the bench, and you want to go And you can feel when it's cutting because it drags a little. If it's not cutting, you can tell if a file's worn out because it will slip over the top. Okay? Okay, we've done that. Now, you want to take this and you want to take off the burr. Just go over like this, take off the burr. And you can, if you want, you can take this, you can take a stone. You don't have to get very aggressive. I mean, you don't have to go really fine. And it's also a good idea, if you do use a stone for sharpening this edge before you bend over the arris, don't use the face here. Use the edge right here because you're going to make grooves. But I like to do it this way because and the theory is that when you put this straight up at 90 degrees, you get this thing at 90 degrees, you're going to find that that you're not going to sharpen both edges. So we got about 2 minutes to go here before we're going to, so I'm sharpening this like this. And after I've done that, then I'm going to take my burnishing rod, which is over here, and first of all, I'm going to file this again. File this again. And then you're going to take your burnishing rod. This is hardened steel. You can take a screwdriver if you want. And you're going to bend it over like this. You're going to bend it over flat. And you're going to bend it over like this. And then you can do it in a vise. I don't do it in a vise. I hold it very tight to my body. And I put a slight bevel on it. Just a slight bevel like that, okay? And you're going to bend it over. Okay, bend it over. And then you're going to turn it around, you're going to do the same thing. Bend it over. And feel this edge. This edge is really amazing. So you can see the shavings it makes. If you're getting dust as opposed to shavings, it isn't sharp enough. Now let's say that it isn't sharp enough, okay? You're not getting the shavings. All you do is go back and bend over the arris, flatten it out like this, and burnish it like that. And sometimes it takes a couple passes. I find my students have a very difficult time with this, but this is one of the most valuable tools you'll carry on your tool bench. So anyways, look, I'm Dick Humphreyville. I hope you've learned a little something. I want you to tune in again for another interesting show. At least I think it's interesting. Thanks for tuning in. See you later. Bye-bye.